What is going on, people? It's Matt from Liquid Loans. In this video, I'm very excited to bring on a guest who I've been following for quite a while. In fact, before I was all in on crypto itself, this guy has one of the most popular and successful blogs in the UK on financial independence. And he's also recently dipped his toe into the digital asset and crypto space and taken a bit of flack for it. So with no further ado, let me welcome Mr. Barney Whiter, aka the Escape Artist.
Hey
Barney.
Matt, hey Matt, great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the YouTube channel. I came across you, I think, a few years ago on the Meaningful Money podcast. You were talking about financial independence. Some call it FIRE. It really, really resonated with me, and obviously escaping the rat race. And I think, obviously, hence the name, the Escape Artist. But before we get into, our talk and our interview, maybe you could tell the viewers a little bio and background on yourself and how you got into finance.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been interested in money, partly because when I was growing up, at times we didn't have a lot of it, and so then, like, when I kind of started to make education choices and career choices, like I chose economics because I knew that was like a gateway to finance. I then trained as an accountant, and then I went and worked in corporate finance in the city for, like, I don't know, 20 years, just because I just knew that it really sucked to be in debt. I knew it sucked to be over leveraged. I knew it kind of sucked to, like, not have money. And so I've always been driven by just wanting, like, financial stability / financial safety / financial freedom. And so, I kind of taught myself, I went into that world, I taught myself everything that I could about, like, traditional investing. So,
Legacy finance.
Equity investing, yeah. And I was a stock picker plus a passive index investor for many years, still am. I never kind of did the property thing, other than buying my own house. But when I did buy my own house, I was very, very, very motivated to, like, pay the mortgage off as quickly as possible. So I got mortgage free when I was like 32.
Wow.
And then I kind of got to financial independence at age 43, quit my job, and since then I've been writing and blogging and coaching people about money.
Wow. Where do you think that motivator came from, though, to, like, you hated debt, you wanted to get out of it so fast? Because a lot of people, obviously the majority of people, don't think like that. Where do you think that stemmed from?
Oh, I've kind of done self-therapy, I've kind of therapy on myself. When I was 11, so in 1981, my parents moved house, and they did the classic thing of, like, buying the biggest house that they could afford with the biggest mortgage they could kind of get from the bank.
Yeah.
And interest rates went to 17% that year.
Oh, ouch.
So that's not a comfy place when you've just leveraged the hell up.
Yeah.
And so, like, that year, and people who know my story are bored by this because they've heard it a million times. Like, that year, the holiday got cancelled. The newspaper had to get cancelled. My dad couldn't afford beer, so he had to start, like, making this horrible fucking homebrew.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, belts were tightened for a bit. Also, my dad worked in the construction industry, and that is the most cyclical industry. And he was kind of like middle manager, the sort of person that gets laid off,
Wow.
And so it just felt a bit scary for a while. And as it happened, it was fine. We didn't get repossessed or put out on the streets, but I think my kind of childhood self picked up on the fact that it was a bit dicey, and that ultimately, you don't own your house, the bank does if you're in debt. And so I probably overreacted to that, if I'm honest. I probably kind of went too far the other way. But, it was a hell of a motivator. And I mean, fear is a very powerful motivator if you channel it and then take action and say, right, I'm not gonna let myself get in that situation.
Yeah, no, it is. Fear is a very good tool to use if you can, take that energy and mutate it into something that's positive for you. Obviously, you're kind of conflated with the FIRE, which I know you're not exactly deep in the FIRE crowd, but you are kind of synonymous with it, with the blog a little bit. People think about Barney Whiter and they think about FIRE. Can you explain FIRE to the viewers?
Yeah, it's financial independence, retire early. I mean, I just focus more on the FI than the RE. So I'm kind of interested in being rich. Like who wouldn't want to be rich, right?
Yeah.
I'm interested in being financially free. I'm interested in having the choice of like whether to work and what sort of work you do and all the rest, and what sort of terms and conditions you work and where you work, all that good stuff. I'm not so, I mean, it does kind of get taken to extremes by people who are kind of just, oh, I've got to get to this FIRE sort of stage where I can then kind of sit at home and do nothing. And I'm like, and a perfectly fair criticism of that is, well, why would you live like a pauper or a monk, just so you can quit your job and carry on living like a pauper or a monk?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, but a lot of people like hassle me for that and criticize me for that. And, they've got a point. So, I mean, I make no claim to like get everything right. On the blog, I just try and write about what actually happened. So my philosophy is I'm not telling other people how they should live their lives. I'm kind of telling my own story. I'm trying to, help people and educate people about some of the more kind of idiotic mistakes that either that I've made or that I see other people making all the time. But to my mind, it's like everyone's the king of their own castle. Everyone's the boss of their own life. Everyone gets to choose which bits of the FIRE philosophy are useful to them, and then how to apply it and how kind of extreme to go.
Absolutely.
I mean, the four pillars of FIRE or FIRE, I think about it. One is earn more. 2 is spend less. 3 is invest the difference wisely, and 4 is know how much is enough. And so that's kind of how I think about the 4 key elements. Now, but it's obviously up to different people and their values and their position in life and their context and their circumstances, like how much they go towards extreme frugality, how much they go to like trying to, hold down a really high paying job that like maybe really kind of taking a lot out of them, which is kind of what I did. Those are very personal, individual choices. So I'm not, so to me, it's up to everyone to sort of take what's useful and leave what isn't.
Absolutely. And if you've got half a brain, I think if you read your blog, which I really enjoy, by the way, it's definitely not telling you should do this or life is black and white. It's your opinion on things. And it's more, yes, it definitely has a financial slant, but it's like a self-help blog. You talk about health is wealth. You talk about fitness. You talk about mindset, self-sovereignty, along with finances and financial independence. And that's why I was excited when you started touching on crypto and I saw you posting about Bitcoin, Ethereum and tweeting about it. So what got you into that? Because I know you weren't obviously always too fond of crypto and digital assets.
No, I remember my origin story on crypto is like in 1990, would you believe, I was at university and the lecturer predicted that new electronic currencies would be invented by the private sector that would kind of compete with the pound and compete with the dollar and kind of there would be these new forms of money. And I remember at the time we all kind of looked at this weird guy and thought, well, he's smoking dope, he's absolutely bonkers. And so I then kind of completely forgot about that. Then we had, fast forward 18 years, you had the global financial crisis, which I saw up close and personal because I was working in corporate, but restructuring within the city. So I was working for a restructuring advisory business, and so basically I saw the financial crisis, at first hand, and I got to work on a lot of really interesting stuff, and I saw how creaky the financial system was and how kind of screwed up the financial system was.
Did you see it coming then?
Yeah, well, I actually bet my career on it. So I moved to a restructuring oriented business in like 2008. So this was pre-Lehman.
Hmm.
And a few months after I joined that, Lehman went bust, and suddenly there was this just more demand for restructuring advice than existed in the city at the time.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying I had a crystal ball, but I did take a career punt on it.
Wow.
And I, you could see, you didn't have to be a genius to see that there was like some kind of bubble-like behavior going on in 2007.
Hmm.
And that whole GFC, I mean, that showed the problems with the traditional financial system. No one at the banks really kind of paid the price. Very few people paid the price for
Yep.
getting those institutions into those situations.
Hmm.
The taxpayer got screwed.
Yep.
And that inspired Satoshi. So
Hmm.
that all of that's kind of in the dim and distant past. But I didn't hear about Bitcoin, I don't know, until maybe 2015, something like that.
Hmm.
And I just ignored it at first because it didn't, A, I didn't understand it, and B, in FIRE world, we've kind of taught ourselves to be suspicious
Hmm.
of anything that looks like a get rich scheme, or
Yeah.
like a Ponzi scheme, or a sort of like a day trading scheme. And crypto does have some characteristics that look like that when you don't really understand it, and you see what's happening at the surface level, and you hear about these kind of mega gains.
Hmm.
Your first reaction, if you're like a sort of a FIRE person, is like, well, it sounds too good to be true, and I don't understand it, so I think I'll just steer clear of it. So
Hmm.
for many years, I just kind of ignored it and hoped it would go away. Because it's quite irritating, like hearing
Yeah.
about people, making huge gains that you're not participating in.
Yeah.
But it got to the point. It just got to the point where enough people that I knew were not idiots and were not kind of spivvy people were talking about it. So like a good example would be like Naval Ravikant,
Yep.
on the Tim Ferriss podcast.
He's great. Yeah, I like him.
He's great. He's
Hmm.
very grounded. He's not, he's the opposite of a spiv. He's not
Yeah.
trying to, he's interested in long-term wealth creation.
Hmm.
And so when people like Naval Ravikant are sort of talking about crypto, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I was wrong, or maybe I was too hasty to dismiss it. I think I better, try and understand a bit about it.
Hmm.
And so I was late, right? I mean, I only bought my first crypto a year ago now.
Okay.
So I'm 2021 vintage, and my timing was hilarious because like May 2021,
Bitcoin crash.
just in the weeks running up to that, I'm just seeing like Ethereum and Bitcoin running away from me, and like I FOMO'd in,
Yeah.
and then within like 2 weeks, it
Yeah.
just, you watch it crash by whatever, like 50% in a couple of days, and I'm like, wow, this is volatile. This is really, really volatile.
If you haven't brought the top in crypto, then I don't think you've been in crypto, to be honest. You have to FOMO in and buy the top and get hurt at some point.
I've ticked that box.
We all have. I think everyone watching this stream has ticked that box. Obviously, you have a growth mindset. You're willing to learn and be wrong and say, how can I adapt? And you see people like Naval and all these other people talking about Bitcoin. Why do you think the FIRE community are quite resistant to it? Is it because they just of that looking for scams all the time in the past?
I mean, it's quite a lot of work to I went down the rabbit hole, and because I had the luxury of like not having a sort of proper full-time job, I was able to spend several months kind of almost full-time just watching watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading stuff, etc. It's really time consuming.
Yeah.
Not so firstly, not everyone's got unlimited time. I mean, secondly, there's a lot there, and uh, there's a barrier to entry in terms of, like, it's not easy stuff. It's
Mm,
intellectually, it takes a bit of wrapping your head around.
yeah.
So you have to have, like, a certain level of IQ, a certain level of openness, a certain level of of curiosity, and a certain amount of time available to you. Otherwise, you're not going to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And the more I went down the rabbit hole, the more I kind of realized that what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole is different to what's at the top of the rabbit hole, and it's actually much more interesting than just like some scheme where a bunch of people are sort of selling each other magic computer coins.
Definitely, definitely. It is a full-time job. You start learning and you think, okay, Bitcoin's normally the gateway drug, and then
Yeah,
it's Ethereum, and then it's these altcoins, and then you find DeFi protocols, and it's like, it really is. And if you've got a 9 to 5, right, and especially a couple of kids and stuff going on, and you can only
yeah,
dedicate, the odd video, it's going to take a long time to get you to wrap your head around it. So I completely
yeah, yeah,
understand with where
yeah.
you're coming from. What do you think about? Are you still? You obviously in the last year you've been learning more. I guess you've been getting a bigger position. Are you still more heavily weighted in stocks in terms of investments?
Oh, like a million times. Yeah. So,
Okay.
well, not a million times. I'm exaggerating, but my crypto position is less than 5% of
Okay.
my net worth, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it's a series of bets that would hurt if it all went to zero, but it,
Mm.
it it wouldn't mean I was working at McDonald's.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to. I mean, with anything as well. I mean, I think I heard you say this on a podcast before. Obviously, you want to know what you're getting involved in, but with crypto, if you try and figure it all out before you invest, a lot of the time you'll miss the boat. So it is kind of that kind of fine line, isn't it?
Well, this is it. I mean, for me, there's a big kind of watershed, which is, am I a virgin or am I not a virgin? And so
Mm,
just buying 100 quid of Bitcoin and 100 quid of Ethereum, which is what I started with, that is, you've mentally crossed a big watershed then. And you've
mm,
made, it's 200 quid, so it's fine. You could afford, most
yeah.
people can afford to lose that. But that's a big signal to yourself that, oh, I'm prepared, I'm open-minded, I'm prepared to, you know, to that's what I call an information stake, right? You put a little bit of money in, and then it encourages you to pay attention to it,
Yeah.
and it activates your reticular activation, or whatever the psychology term is. It means that you just pay attention to it, and you start to gather more knowledge.
Yeah, I think having some skin in the game is important, right? Otherwise, if you're just checking the price here and there, like obviously buying the top and then seeing it crash 50% is hard, but then also it taught you a lesson. Oh, maybe don't FOMO into tops. And also this thing's super volatile,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
So, so
it's good to learn from stuff like
what
that.
I mean, this is what I say to the FI crowd, or the fire crowd. I say, it's a great educational experience. I mean, I think of crypto not so much as a get rich quick scheme. I think of it as a get used to volatility quick scheme.
Mm, mm,
And I see, because I coach people, and I write about, you know equities, the stock market, things that kind of normal people think are risky, right? So your average kind of Joe on the street is pretty suspicious of equities and pretty suspicious of the stock market, and couldn't I lose all my money, etc.
mm.
And so, I've spent a lot of time, like, helping people wrap their head around risk and volatility, and the fact that risk and volatility are not they're related concepts, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah,
And volatility is the entry price for higher returns.
yeah,
Volatility is what keeps the scaredy cats out, and it means the people that go in and put some skin in the game are able to earn excess return. So I've walked a ton of people through that process traditionally for equities. And so when you then see crypto, it's like, oh, I get it. So equities are like a 20 volatility asset, and crypto's like an 80 vol asset. So it's kind of 4 times as
mm,
volatile. And that just means it doesn't mean it's evil, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you have to respect it and be careful and start small.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that volatility goes both ways. So yes, you can be down 50% in one day. You can also be up 50%, even 100%, even hundreds of percent, depending on, how big the project is, the liquidity pools and all that. And yeah, it's good that you obviously brace people for that when you tell them, is that how you get no coiners or newbies in? You say, start small and brace yourself for impact.
Yeah. So firstly I say, it's a get used to volatility quick scheme.
Yeah.
The other thing I say is, if the stock market goes down, 30% in a day, they call that Black Thursday. In crypto, that's just Thursday.
Yeah. That's a Thursday afternoon.
That's just Thursday.
Yeah.
So so start small, baby steps. I started with 100 quid of Bitcoin, 100 quid of Ethereum, that I bought at Coinbase. And so that's a pretty kind of vanilla kind of entry point. And I just think it's I think then you can kind of scale in over time, because I mean all the strategies that work in TradFi for the fire crowd, things like dollar cost averaging, paying yourself first, dollar cost averaging in each month, diversifying by asset class, diversifying over time. These things work just as well in crypto. If anything, it's more important in crypto because of the higher volatility. So, in the world of equities, like dollar cost averaging is really, really helpful. In crypto, it's kind of a superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first learned about DCAing, and it was nothing to do with crypto. In fact, I was living in Asia at the time and I was buying physical gold. And someone who'd told me to do it, I was like, oh, the price has gone down. And he was like, yeah, go and buy more and average out your average buy. And I was like, oh yeah, and then obviously that works across all asset classes. So yeah, I mean, it's no different. DCAing, getting a position, obviously holding long term. Yes, people can get rich with a dog coin overnight, but still most of the time in crypto, even if you're going to get rich quicker than the average fire crowd, because it seems to me like those guys are obsessed with getting rich slow, right? 20 years or whatever. You might do that but it's still years. It's probably still 2 to 5 years to get rich in crypto if you're going to DCA in and sit through retraces and 70-80% dips, which is very, very likely in crypto.
Well, I've written a bunch of stuff about how it's impossible to get rich quick, but then you see crypto and you go down the rabbit hole and you're like, okay, well, when I said impossible, maybe it wasn't
99% normally. No, but yeah,
it's like the only reason I didn't, the reason that I don't, talk about getting rich quick is because it generally, has for most of my life been impossible, to do it without taking kind of insane risks or drug dealing or something. But crypto is interesting. It's particularly interesting where you see not just because of the volatility, but when you understand, and this was the missing bit for me. What the fire crowd have been really good at is hammering home the value of productive assets, right? So, rental properties are productive assets because you can rent them out and you get a cash flow and you hopefully get some capital gain. So it's a real asset, it's a productive asset, it's a cash flow generating asset. We like that. We like equities for the same reason. And in fire world, we prefer those two asset classes to gold because of that productive aspect.
Yeah.
And the thing that really got me kind of interested in crypto coin, that there are productive assets, there are productive digital assets that generate cash flows and have utility and do useful things in the world. I'm like, oh, now this is really interesting.
Yeah, when you look into DeFi 2.0, with a lot of people watching this stream are going to be hexagons, which they buy hex. And again, before, in the early stages of crypto, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, it was buy, hold, hopefully it goes up, you sell. Now, obviously, we have that, we have the hindsight of looking back and seeing asset appreciation, but now you can do stuff like buy hex and you can stake it. and you can earn yield on that, and inflation and interest, and depending on what protocol you're using. So there's so many different protocols. Are you familiar with any other DeFi protocols?
So I'm, to me, like if you just look at, I kind of touched on this earlier. There's quite a lot wrong with the traditional um, financial system, right?
Yeah.
One being there's no yield, there's no interest rate, there's no, and again from a FIRE perspective, there's no reward for prudence, because essentially, if you just sit with your money in cash, the government is stealing it from you.
Yeah.
At a rate of whatever the money the money printing rate is that year. So if they're inflating the money supply by 20% a year, it's like a 20% invisible tax on your cash, right? So there's quite a lot wrong with the traditional financial system as it stands at the moment. There's no interest rate, there's no reward for saving, there's no reward for prudence, granny's pockets being picked. And so what's really interesting about crypto and DeFi is like it just brings back the concept of yield and the time value of money, and like a risk curve.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of there's a spectrum of protocols, and higher risk tends to mean you get higher yields, higher APRs. I'm, in some ways, I'm most interested in the lowest risk bit of the curve, which is like staking something like ETH. So I've got an ETH position. I've staked my ETH. There's definitely risk to that, because it's I'm not going to get my hands on that until the merge happens and all the sort of execution risk around that is removed. So it's not a risk-free rate, but the truth is the risk-free rate doesn't really exist in TradFi. And the thing I like about crypto is, yes, there are all these risks to it, but at least everyone kind of knows that it's risky.
Yeah.
And so you choose where you want to, within DeFi, you can choose how intricately involved you want to get with some of the complex stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
And you can choose how much risk to take, and you can choose, what you want your APR to be. I'm just pretty chuffed to earn like 5% staking my ETH, in a real kind of newbie way.
I mean, it's much better than the legacy financial systems, what they're giving.
Yeah, and then there's, as you know better, there's all these kind of clever ways to enhance yield and essentially disintermediate the banks. And I think that's all. I think DeFi, is a reaction to is a natural reaction to the abuses of the financial system that happened in the past, and I would like to see more disintermediation. And so I want to see this new world continue to develop and thrive. And I'm when you look at the intellectual capital in the space as well as the financial capital in the space, I can't see how it doesn't win over time.
Absolutely. So you hold ETH? Do you hold it in do you have a MetaMask? Do you hold it in a private wallet?
I've got a hardware wallet. Good. I've got like a ledger thing, so I've got an air gap, which is probably the most secure way, as I understand it.
The hardware wallet's great. And why I'm asking you that is it off a centralized exchange? Because I want to ask you, have you heard about PulseChain at all?
No. So I mean, there's any number of protocols that I don't know about. There's too essentially there's too much for me anyway to keep up with everything.
But you're about to get some free money. So if you hold ETH or you hold any ERC20, I mean, you don't have to tell me exactly what you hold, but do you have any other ERC20 tokens on Ethereum?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So basically, Liquid Loans, the channel obviously you're on right now, we're launching a protocol on PulseChain, and PulseChain is a fork of Ethereum, because as you know, as an Ethereum user, gas fees are insane, right? Especially in the bull market. You're paying like minimum like $20 to send your Ethereum from wallet to wallet. And I'm sure you've experienced that, right? Yeah, and then you've got obviously the miners. It's a proof of work network. So PulseChain is basically Richard Hart, who's the founder of Hex. He's copying Ethereum and doing a fork. Do you know what a fork is? There's many forks of
Yep.
Ethereum. Yeah. So he's doing that, and anyone who's holding any Ethereum or any ERC20 is going to get a copy. So when it goes live, all you've got to do is go to your MetaMask or whatever hardware wallet you're using, put in. Flick the network over to PulseChain, and you're going to have a copy of everything that you've got on Ethereum, which will start at zero value, but I'm sure over time that will accrue value as well. And it's going to be proof of stake compared to proof of work. So it's going to be a lot quicker, a lot more environmentally friendly, and it's kind of beat it because obviously you're staking your Ethereum, so you know what ETH 2.0 is, but that might take a long time to come out. I'm sure you know some of the processes that are going on there. So yeah, just a heads up, you're going to get some free coins on PulseChain, and it's probably going to be live in the next month or so. So keep your eyes open, maybe do a bit of research, because it's going to be a whole new thing over there. If you've used Uniswap or any of the decentralized exchanges, there's going to be copies of those all on PulseChain, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to like install a new wallet. So it's quite interesting. There's been quite a few hard forks of Ethereum, but this is the first hard fork to do a full system state copy, which means everything on Ethereum is being copied over. You told me actually in the green room before we went live, your son's got an NFT as well, right? And he's going to have a copy on PulseChain too. So everything that's going to be, so it's going to be quite an interesting time, and no one's ever done anything like that. So a lot of people like me and you who've been hurt by the gas fees on Ethereum. For example, I think last night at one point I was on matcha.xyz. I'm not sure you know what that is. It's like a DEX. Yeah, it's a DEX aggregator, and it was like $1,000 for a swap. And I was like, I only want to swap $500 worth of USDC for something else. There's $1,000 to swap. So it's completely crippling the network. So just a heads up, have a look at that. And for you and your son, you're going to get a copy of your stuff, which might help out. Another question I want to ask you, because some good news came out and I saw you tweet about it earlier, the UK's new regulation on stablecoins. What do you think about that?
I think it's huge. Because essentially the government has just shown its hand. So, I've like a year ago, I was looking at the regulatory uncertainty, and I didn't know which way it was going to go, because no one knew which. All I could see was that the FCA had, for example, banned like ETFs, products that would kind of solve the custody problem for newbies. And so it looked at that point as if the FCA were kind of hostile. I remember the grief that I had when I tried to send money from my Lloyd's bank account just to Coinbase and Kraken, etc. And at one point Lloyd's kind of flicked the switch and closed me down for a bit. And so to me it's huge to see the government release a formal statement on gov.uk saying we're going to make the UK a hub. We're going to protect London and the UK's position as a fintech hub. We're going to try and build on that. We're going to have a regulatory sandbox that allows crypto firms to experiment and grow, etc. in a regulatory with a regulatory light touch. So to me, that, like, yesterday's news was huge, and it signals the government's thinking. I was talking about this with someone else, and he was saying, well, I don't think they'll follow through on it, and I don't think they'll make the UK a global hub for crypto. I'm like, they don't. Fine, let's just assume the government don't do anything useful. What they've just said is they're not going to try and put everyone in prison, and that's a really, really big deal, and it's a really big advance from where we were a year ago.
It's quite a big U-turn.
3 years ago. So to me, it's like a hugely positive step. I don't think people realize, quite how positive that is. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Like you said last year, I had the same thing. I think Barclays Bank were blocking payments to Binance, and it was hit and miss if you could get a payment going through. Just transferring fiat currency to any exchange. So to see them do this, and especially, I'm not sure you're aware of what's been going on over in the EU, but they've been talking about banning stuff and
Yeah,
regulating wallets, which is impossible. What they're talking about is trying to get everyone to KYC their private wallets and stuff like that, which is completely anti-crypto. So to see the UK, I mean, maybe they saw this as a way to jump ahead. They must have been talking about it for a while, but it is interesting that it's going to be seen as a real form of payment, and they want to make the UK a crypto hub, because it was looking scary last year. I was like,
yeah.
can barely get any money from the bank to the exchange to buy anything. So
Well, when when Lloyd's Bank essentially shut down my account for crypto activity, the sort of suspicious part of me went, okay, is this essentially how the government chokes this sector to death by essentially getting all the banks to to not allow the use of the payment network and chaps and Swift and all the rest of it? And so to me, it's huge to see that announcement yesterday. It's huge to see the recognition that there will be private sector sterling stable coins, as well as no doubt a Bank of England kind of digital pound. So there will essentially be competing form stable coins, with the blessing of the Bank of England and the UK government. So I think it's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, it really, really is. You worked in the city and legacy finance, for quite a while, and we know that legacy finance is investing more into crypto. But have you got any backroom knowledge about how much they're doing now, or firms that you used to work with? Are they getting in more and more?
It's not backroom knowledge, but I just read. Again, I read last year, like mouth open, the Goldman Sachs report.
Yeah.
So Goldman Sachs, who a number of times have kind of said, started researching crypto and then shut it down, and who have, along with all the other banks, have got quite a lot to lose from, potentially from a whole new financial system being built. To see like Goldman's publish research on Ethereum, really, really bullish research on Ethereum, kind of blew my mind and made me realize that, again, I was still hearing people say, well, it's all going to go away and, the government's going to shut it all down. I'm like, hold on, have you read this Goldman Sachs, official research where that, and how bullish they are on Ethereum and how much they're servicing clients, trading activities in crypto? It's like, you should sit up and take notice. This is a big deal. And once firms like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are finding ways to make money from it, it ain't going away.
I think they've realized, and the penny's dropped, that it's reached escape velocity, right? And like me and you probably back in the day, we were just hoping it was going to go away. I was the same. I heard about Bitcoin in 2012, 2013. I was like, I don't understand this. Hopefully it just goes away, because it's annoying to hear about these people becoming multimillionaires overnight. But I think, I think the penny's dropped, and like the UK government have now, right? If we can't beat them, join them. So let's make some money from it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've only been involved, as in terms of owning crypto for 1 year, but in that time, I've seen it go from a situation where the FCA had just banned crypto funds being sold to the public. We've gone from that to seeing Goldman Sachs publish research. We've seen the government declare its intention to create the UK as a fintech and crypto hub. You see what's happening in like Singapore and Dubai and Canada, and also the new administration in the US. And you're like, wow, this every day I'm seeing the regulatory risk being mitigated. That doesn't mean there won't be mistakes, and it doesn't mean there won't be heavy-handed regulation. I mean, the EU is pretty good at finding ways to introduce heavy-handed regulation, but the point is, it's like a game theory situation where you've got 200 nations in the world. Unless every single nation, bans it, then you're going to have countries that will say, okay, we're the safe haven, we're the crypto hub, we'll take the wealth and the tax take from it. And so, it's really interesting to see the regulatory risk fading or being clarified, at least from, whilst I'm still getting emails from people saying, well, this is all illegal and it's going to be shut down. I'm like, well, you sure about that?
Yeah, no, it moves so fast. And you said you've been in a year, but you're a veteran in crypto already, Barney, whether you know it or not. A year in crypto is like 20 years in legacy finance. Things move so
Yeah.
fast.
It's like dog years, isn't it?
Yeah, they move like you're right. It's the one time where FOMOing into something can be a good thing because it moves so far. I'm not telling anyone to FOMO in. You should always do your own research, but sitting around and saying I'm going to read up on this for 6 months, I mean, you'll be left in the dust a lot of the time with crypto. So I think your advice to newbies and no coiners, and you even just buying 100 or 50 quid or something and just seeing how it goes and starting sending it around is good advice to get started, because things move absolutely at light speed in this space.
I'm really interested in some of the potential for what Raoul Pal calls the tokenization of everything. Okay, and so what he's really good at talking about is the impact on like traditional business models, and the fact that basically, all consumer goods companies or consumer facing companies are probably going to have their own token, and it's going to form part of the capital structure alongside debt and equity. The most obvious example of that will be, things like Starbucks. So where in the past you'd go into Starbucks and they'd give you a little card and you get stamps on it, and if you'd buy 6 coffees you get 1 free. I mean, all of that is going to go. There's going to be Starbucks token, if there isn't already. Maybe there is already. Maybe I missed it.
But I don't think so, but it will come.
There's going to be Starbucks token. There's going to be Disney token, like whereby you spend Disney token in the theme parks. You collect it. They're going to make a fortune from NFTs, etc. With that kind of back catalogue of IP. And so what that's going to, when all of these big companies have tokens that the customers can buy, sell, hold, trade, all of the customers have got skin in the game. All of the customers have got a financial interest in the business that they didn't before. And I'm really interested by the potential for that to like turbocharge their marketing.
Yeah. I really think that we're all heading that way, because like you said, when someone holds something, they become a believer in it, and then they start becoming a bit of a shill for it, right? They're talking about it more, and then the company, whether that's Disney or Starbucks or H&M.
I've seen this in the FAR world. So we have all been shilling Vanguard, right? Because Vanguard came out and said, okay, we're a bit different to these other fund management companies because we're a mutual organization, so we're ultimately owned by the customers. And so that created this kind of community effect where all these FAR bloggers would bang on about Vanguard, and Vanguard's now the second biggest fund management company in the world. It's absolutely enormous, and it's done that by spending less than anyone else on marketing, because all people like me have just done their marketing for them.
I mean, any FIRE group talks about Vanguard and get an ETF global index tracker, and that's it pretty much. And great marketing.
So when I can't see how any all the airlines are going to put their rewards, their points. They're going to have a token for that. All the coffee companies they're going to have tokens. Disney's going to have a token. Football clubs. There's a really interesting business called Chiliz/Socios who run fan tokens for people like Arsenal, Real Madrid,
Yeah,
Barcelona.
yeah, I know them. Yeah,
And if you're and I don't know if it's a good business or not, but it's a really interesting idea, and it allows the fans to have some small say and some vote and some financial interest
mm.
in their sort of in the thing that they're passionate about. So I'm kind of interested to see how all of that plays out, regardless of whether it makes me any money or not. I think it is going to change corporate business models.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see it heading that way. Moving on a little bit. Obviously, money is great. Financial freedom's great for someone who's been financially independent, financially free, I guess, for quite a few years. I guess there's more to life than money too. What else is important in life apart from obviously having your finances taken care of?
Well, it's just like money's a tool. Money's a tool that you can use to improve your life. And I write about this on the blog quite a lot.
Mm,
If you could only choose, if I had to choose between health and wealth, I would choose health. There's no point in being, like the richest man, in the sort of intensive care unit.
yeah.
Um, and so one of the, I'm a fan of like, fire blogs like Mr. Money Moustache, because I
Mm,
think the thing that he got right was that it isn't just about penny pinching. It's not just about frugality. It's about living like a really healthy, active, outdoor lifestyle.
mm,
And so, that's why I'm like a huge proponent of just getting the fuck outside as much as possible.
yeah.
I think it's really bad for people to be spending all of their life, inside under fluorescent lights,
Yeah.
either in an office or whether it's working from home. Like, people need to get out more. People, for really, really important fundamental health reasons, people need to get out more.
Yeah, absolutely. Health is wealth. And I think I'm the same as you. I work out every single day. And whenever it's sunny or it's nice, I'll go for a walk in the woods or a hike or just, yeah, I think it's great. Like, obviously, everyone watching this and everyone's watching your content, we want to be financially free. We want to, accrue more wealth. But like you said, when you're just focused on it too much and then you let other things fall by the wayside, like your health, maybe your relationships, it really, you
And,
really do
and
need some balance.
I've made all those mistakes, which is why I write about the stuff that I write
Mm,
about, because I let my health suffer. I did some I worked myself too hard at points, and
mm,
I would go to the doctor and they would like, what? Where have you've had this for a week, and you have like some
yeah,
your arms basically hanging off, and you haven't come in. And I was like, oh, I was busy, And they're like, you're mad. You're absolutely mad. So, in the course of my job, I pushed myself um, pretty hard, and I was definitely in health overdraft,
mm,
and
mm,
it was unsustainable. And so, I mean, I'm honest about that, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend to anyone else that you kind of jeopardize your health, uh, in order to just get to this magic sort of nirvana of financial independence.
mm.
The health and wealth should be complementary.
Yeah, definitely. They're part of being wealthy is much more than just finances. It's obviously having, good health. And I remember when I'm in my younger years, when I was a personal trainer, I had a client who was, a really wealthy, he'd been a banker for many years and stuff. And he'd like, I think he'd been working, for 20 years or what's not. He was in his like mid 40s and he just finished some job with a huge bank like Deutsche Bank or something. That he got a big payoff, multimillionaire. The guy couldn't put his boxers on in the morning without lying on the floor because his hip flexors were so tight and his
Ah,
posture was so bad. And it was like, yeah, now you're a multimillionaire and but your posture's all hunched up. And he it took him years of doing yoga and stretching and me helping him. And it's just, like you say, you'd rather choose health than wealth, but you can have both, right?
so that's a really good story. I mean, the story that made it really personal for me, I remember very clearly when I just turned 40. um, I was at my desk, probably, late one evening. And I remember like reading in, it's online somewhere about a Deutsche Bank, I think it was, M&A banker, M&A advisor, who was found dead at his desk at 7:15 on a Friday evening.
Jesus.
And the really, really tragic, I shouldn't laugh, but you kind of have to laugh at some of the absurdity of like what we put ourselves through. That no one thought it was unusual that he was at his desk at 7:15 on a Friday. And so, it took them a while to kind of realize that, George has died over there.
Yeah.
And I read about, and I was in a not dissimilar job to that at the time, and I just turned 40, and I'm like, right, so he was 43 in similar job, and I've been having a few health issues recently. The kind of light bulb went on, and I was like, okay, I might need to make some adjustments.
Wake up call, big time. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Obviously, the universe is always giving you signs, especially with your body, right? Like the neck ache or the back ache. But are you listening to it? Are you, taking?
Well, I had been ignoring the signs, and again, I think of it like if you imagine a rev counter on a car dashboard. You've got the red zone where it's like you're over revving the engine. And I used to have like a patch of skin on my arm whereby if I was under a lot of stress, or if I'd been drinking, it would go really, really red and like itchy and flare up. And it was like my own personal rev counter. It was like my own personal stressometer. And I ignored that for years, and I just kind of like watched it and just ignored it and hoped it would go away. And so I've just made a lot of those mistakes. I have three children, and I missed quite a lot of the early years, the time with them in the early years. So I'm interested in the trade-offs that we make.
A lot of sacrifice goes into obviously achieving anything big, and what you did obviously was completely abnormal compared to the average person in the UK. Obviously, being financially free in your early 40s. Well, from where you are now, though, what are your goals and what do you want to do with your life going forward? Obviously, you've got your blog.
So I continue to write. I coach people. To me, the writing is very therapeutic. It helps me kind of collect my thoughts, and I send that out to my email list kind of once a weekish, and that's where the kind of new content is. And I know because people email me and they say, I found it, and it's really helped me through some kind of dark times or difficult times. It's it's incentivized me to get out of debt, or it's incentivized me to get fit and lose the weight, etc. And it's kind of like it's people tell me that it's like that it helped them, and so I get good feedback from it. So I just kind of I want to carry on. Want to carry on doing that. Like the fitness thing is really interesting to me. So I'm 51 now, so I'm fighting time desperately, and it's really interesting to me to see how long I can keep that going, because I'm still kind of I just had my percentage body fat measured, but like where they hook you up to a machine and like a run a current scan. I don't know if it was a DEXA scan, but it was like it was like one of these quite accurate machines, and they run a current. And I was 15.8%, and so like one of my big life goals is to get to 15%.
You're in good shape, man. You look in great shape.
Well, just a couple of years ago, I had the same test, and I was like 22%, and I'm like,
wow, that's great.
That's not good. So I've gone from 22% body fat to 15.8% fat, and so that's like, so I'm just, to me it's kind of fun to be in as good shape as I've ever been, age 51, and I'm like, so I deliberately have some kind of older male role models who are really good at this sort of stuff, and amazing things are possible. Like amazing things are possible. So I'm really interested in nutrition. I'm really interested in health. I'm really interested in flexibility.
Awesome.
You know, I do the writing and the coaching. My kids are almost kind of grown up now, so they're kind of off the payroll. But
Now,
but you know, they've had they, along with many other kind of young people, had a really tough time through lockdown. So you know, that's I'm kind of making up for the fact I was like kind of a terrible dad like in the early years.
I'm sure there's worse dads. You working your ass off to become financially independent. I'm sure there's guys who are a little bit more absent for other reasons. So don't beat yourself up too much.
Maybe. Well, okay, you can tell. I'm going to show my daughter the recording of this, actually.
Well, listen, man, this has been great having you on. I've really enjoyed talking to you and picking your brains. Before I let you go, what one advice would you give to anyone who wants to be financially independent?
Just be intentional. You know, just make your own choices. You don't have to do what everyone around you is doing. And so I don't mind if you want to kind of be super frugal, or I don't mind if you want to like buy yourself a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, and in order to do that you're going to kind of earn your way, or have your own business that will allow you to get to financial freedom. So I kind of don't push a particular lifestyle. I'm just like, for God's sake, like make conscious choices, like be intentional. Don't just do what everyone else is doing, because I mean, bluntly, I just don't think normal is good enough. Like in the modern world, it's just normal is not healthy enough. It's not. If you're just normal, you're gonna be overweight. You're gonna like have no muscle mass. You're gonna be like pasty, and you're not gonna be very healthy. So I just don't think being normal is enough right now.
Yep. I agree. There's a powerlifter in the US called Mark Bell. I'm not sure you've heard of him. And he's got this statement where he said before, I'd rather be dead than average. And I know it's a bit extreme, but I live by that. I don't want to be average, because average normally means in debt. It means overweight. It means kind of on antidepressants. So I think that's a really,
comfort is killing us. This is the problem. Like the system is set up to sell people comfort and convenience. And we're like frogs being boiled in the pan. You know, we actually
1 degree at a time.
Yeah, humans need physical. We need a bit of like variability in our food supply. We need a bit of fasting. We need a bit of like healthy stress, exercise. So we need some of that. And the problem is that's been engineered out of life too much.
Yeah, and that's what, obviously we talked about this before in the green room. Your t-shirt you're wearing there, stoicism. I mean, that sums it up. It's funny that people who lived, in ancient Greece and Marcus Aurelius in the Roman Empire thousands of years ago had wisdom. I feel like we've got a lot dumber. You know what I mean, with technology?
I mean, this is one of the things that I loved about crypto. When I found the crypto space, I was like, oh, that's where all the smart people went, because the mainstream media was just so fucking dumbed down. That over the last few years, and it's full of nonsense, and everything's kind of dumbed down to the lowest level. I was like, where did all the smart people go? And then I found crypto, and like, oh, that's where they went. And it doesn't mean that everyone in crypto is right. It doesn't mean everyone's the same, but there's a lot of smart people in crypto, and it's one of the things that kind of attracted me to it. It's kind of where the independent thinkers went.
Yes.
And that's what I like. It's what I like about crypto. It's what I liked about financial independence. I like independent thinkers. Yeah,
it is. And a lot of people in crypto, when you go to crypto meetups, two things will jump out. Number one, it's a sausage fest, so don't expect to meet any hot girls. And number two, no, it's very limited. It's very male dominated. And number two is, a lot of independent thinkers, right? They're libertarians. They care about freedom of speech. They care about, not having overreaching governments and stuff like this. So yeah, you're right. It was great. Obviously, a lot of people are here for the mad gains and the Lambos. There's nothing wrong with that. But also, there's a lot of people in here with a more of an open mind, and that's kind of what led them into it in the first place. So I'm really happy to see that you've taken the step across the chasm and come into crypto. Before I let you go, people in the chat are saying, yes, 50s is the new 30s, and you look great. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Might want to adjust your screen, mate. No,
Also,
thank you.
where can people find you and find out more about you?
So it's www.theescapeartist.me. So not .com, not .co.uk.
I've actually linked it. Sorry to interrupt you. I've linked it below in the video description too, so people can find it there.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So that's my home base. Find me there, and you can sign up for the new articles there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Barney. I really appreciate your time and coming on. I've enjoyed talking to you. And
thank you for the invitation. Keep in touch.
Yeah, you'll have to come back on.
Nice one, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. The escape artist himself. What a great guy. Great perspective on crypto, life, self-development, all that good stuff. Guys, if you like the video, do hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new videos and content on the channel. You can also share the video with someone who you think, maybe tap that like button. And if you're watching the playback, drop a cheeky comment below for the algo. It does help us out. I hope you're all having a great Wednesday wherever you are in the world. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you on the next one.